Hello friends, I'm Colin, and we have a lot of interesting things to go over today. But first, coffee. And you know what, dear commenter? You're right. I am not Alex's Shook. I am not Zachary Michael. I am Colin Mockery. But actually for today, I am Colin Dougherty. And I realize I talk about Zach a lot, and just coincidentally, actually, I started getting into the Dougherty dozen right around the time that they started covering them. So honestly, it's not that surprising because we probably get recommended the same types of videos considering the content we both make. But the reason actually I got into the Dougherty dozen was because I've been very into Hannah Alonso lately, specifically her Influencer Insanity series. If I'm being real with you, I tend to do this thing where I find one YouTuber I like, watch all of their content, and then when I'm done, I start over, and then I'll find a new topic that I'm interested in. I will search for another YouTuber I like, I will watch all of their content, etc, etc. And stop trying to tell me I'm autistic. I already self-diagnosed with quirky. So I started with Hannah Alonso. I got really interested about the copyright strike nonsense. And to be honest, I did start watching quite a bit of Dougherty dozen original content myself without the filter of a reaction channel. And it confused me. I was like, why are there so many reaction channels apparently about this random mommy vlogger? She seems honestly kinda boring. And then I actually started looking into what the big deal was about the Dougherty dozen, and I get it now. And while we're on the subject of riding coattails, a lot of the information I'm going to share comes from Amy Robinson. I have voraciously devoured her Dougherty dozen playlist. I think the way she covers them is excellent, so I would be remiss not to mention her. That being said, I do have obviously my own perspective on things, given my relatively recent and probably limited knowledge about the whole situation. But first of all, I want to talk about how we got here. Who on earth are the Dougherty dozen? There's the mom, Alicia Dougherty, her husband Josh, and they have currently 11 children. And I don't want to see anyone in my comments trying to tell me that Alicia Dougherty pronounces her own name wrong, because it's her name. Words, names, pronunciations, those things evolve. America is a melting pot. You're just gonna have to let it go. Alicia is going to be our main focus because even though the vlogs are kind of supposed to focus on the whole family, she is the one running the show. And I do mean the show. The Dougherty dozen channel got super popular very quickly. I don't know if this is still the case, but I think at the height of their popularity, they had over 1 million subscribers. They're popular on TikTok, they're popular on YouTube, I'm sure they're probably popular on Instagram, although I haven't looked. And I think a lot of the reason Alicia got so popular is because of, well, the shock value of having 11 children. That, in and of itself, is reality TV in the making. Like, obviously people are gonna wanna tune into that. Because that leads us into arguably the most divisive thing about the Dougherty dozen channel. Because a lot of Alicia's content is stuff like grocery hauls, or like my morning routine where I prepare breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner for the whole family. And you know, there's occasionally some fruits and vegetables, but for the most part, it is just dairy, carbs, sugar. Like, it's a lot. Especially ironic considering she also has kids with lactose intolerance. Homegirl loves some cheese, and like, agree, love some cheese. But those lactose intolerant kids, they're gonna pay. I'm not here to shame junk food. Like, I eat some form of junk food pretty much every day in moderation. But the problem is that it's that there is no moderation. And the thing about that kind of criticism is you will always have people saying, well, you're just shaming her because she's a mom of 11 who's really trying to feed everyone, and convenience is sometimes just the answer. And yeah, I agree, convenience sometimes really is the answer. But also, Alicia is a stay-at-home mom. All of the kids are in public school. She's gonna have plenty of the day to herself. And she has chosen to fill that day with content. The content creation is her job. I don't think you can make the argument that it's just easier to go for convenience, because she's filling her days with shopping for nonsense that the family really doesn't need, vlogging, making TikToks with her children. I just don't think that's a reasonable argument. There are other people who argue, well, yeah, but she's also said she has some kids who have food aversion, certain foods that they're like safe foods for them. That I understand as well. But the thing that bothers me about that is also the Dougherty Dozen channel at one point was making a ridiculous amount of money. They have the resources to get therapy for their kids, and some of the kids I believe are in therapy. I just don't think it's acceptable to say, well, this kid is not going to eat X, Y, and Z thing. They're gonna eat a ketchup sandwich. We're just gonna leave it at that. Because no, at that stage in their life, there are vital nutrients that these kids are missing out on. And also, not all of her kids have this food aversion problem. That excuse might work for a couple of them, but not all 11. And every single one of her kids has their own mini fridge, which they can request to be filled with any kind of junk food that they want, because it's pretty much always junk food that they want. And she jam packs those things and says something about it being their weekly stock.
Mini fridge restock for my 11 kids. They're stocked for another week. That's it for today.
First of all, these mini fridges, I'm pretty sure they're actually like makeup fridges. She put some ridiculous things in there. Like one time she put like mochi in there, and I also think she knew exactly what she was doing when she did this.
Mini fridges are not designed to be cold enough to keep ice cream in. I would know. I learned the hard way when my Ben & Jerry's leaked all over my mini fridge in college. Been there, done that. This is a red flag to me that the mom is doing all of it for the camera and that this is intentional rage bait. Because we all know that mochi won't be stored in the mini fridge and that she's gonna have to take it out right after she's done filming the video.
Like, it's just silly, and it's so clear it's for content. One of the first Dougherty Dozen videos I saw was actually in response to the backlash she got for feeding her kids all this junk food. She was like, well, a lot of people have said that we should give our kids fruit in their mini fridges instead. So she takes them to the store, she buys just a ton of fruit, and then she puts like raw lemons and full uncut watermelons in these fridges and just slams the door with such anger and sass. Like, it's clear she is so pissed off. Well, we can't talk about the Dougherty Dozen and their food habits without talking about Alicia's shopping. This channel is her job. Yes, she's documenting her life, she's vlogging, she's sharing her family life, but also some of this stuff is just content, and it's not realistic. Alicia is regularly spending like several $1,000s per week on the family's groceries. And sometimes she shows their storage space, what they call a pantry in their garage. I have nothing against, storing some food away for emergencies. When I was growing up, there were only 4 people in my house, and we still had like a few shelves of canned goods in the basement, just in case. And whether or not you agree with it, there are some people who are like doomsday preppers, who will have like a massive hoard of canned and jarred vegetables, fruit, meat. They might even can and jar their own produce, make their own jerky, etc., etc. This is not that either. This is not that.
We're talking about this!
This is the Dougherty General Store. This is Snack Food Station. She does have a very loyal following. They'll say things like, yeah, You might disagree with how she feeds her kids, but at least her kids are fed. Some of those kids might have, issues with food insecurity, and having that giant hoard of food might feel comforting to some of those kids. And also, we can't possibly know how quickly they go through food because most people don't have a family of 13. Even with 13 people in the house, I don't think you can make the argument that this is a reasonable amount of stock to keep in your house. I reasonably don't think that all of this food is going to get eaten before it goes bad. I just don't. What I think, in my opinion, is that Alicia has a bit of a shopping problem. You can see it in her face sometimes when she'll get deliveries and she'll open them and she'll have the excitement of opening the thing, and then she just kind of pitches it to the side and moves on to something else.
These are what I ordered, Harley. Mine were supposed to be matching, but instead I got these.
It's very Amberlynn Reid Torrid Mountain Coated. It really is. I've heard Alicia make the comment before that whenever people hear she has 11 kids, they'll often ask, are they all yours? Meaning, are they all biological? And she always says, yes, because as far as she's concerned, whether or not the kids are biologically hers or adopted, they are her kids. But for the sake of this video, and honestly it should be for the sake of her own videos, there needs to be a distinction made. Most of her kids are adopted/fostered, and I think only the 3 youngest are biologically Alicia's and Josh's. Alicia is very guilty of exploiting her children for views. And I don't use the term exploiting lightly here.
That's my opinion!
Because a lot of her kids were fostered and then adopted, they have very tragic and traumatizing pasts, which she has just kind of laid out on the internet for everyone else to consume. She's even taken sponsorships in which she has laid out her kids' trauma, like by name, talked about a specific child's trauma. It would be bad enough if she was doing that without making money off of it, but the fact that she does make money off of it just puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And not only is she talking about her kids' trauma, but she also just talks about way too much personal information in general. Talking about their bodily functions, talking about their medicines that they take. She'll literally list out all the different medications her kids are gonna take and include that as part of her morning routine. If your doctor is not allowed to get online and talk about your medications that you take, I don't think your mom should be doing that either. It's become clear over time that Alicia has no regard for privacy or safety when it comes to her kids or herself. Their home address is just on the internet for anyone to find.
No, our address is on Google, so I've given up caring.
She's made it very easy for people to find out which schools her kids go to. And even once, they had a strange couple just show up at their house. And what did Alicia do? She got on her vlog and thanked them for showing up.
I wanted to thank somebody stopped by today. Diana and her husband Sean stopped by today and just gave Josh and I, they were very sweet, and we're basically we just want to stop by and tell you that we're proud of you and you're inspiring and keep going. And we were like, thank you.
Huh? It's ridiculous. It's truly ridiculous, and it gets worse because her disregard for safety doesn't just extend to stranger danger, but also there was one time where Alicia and her husband Josh drank too much at dinner when they were all out to dinner, and so they couldn't drive home. So they had their then 15-year-old son, who had a learner's permit but not a full license, drive the entire family home. Oh, and also, his hand was in a cast. Even the other kids recognized how dangerous this was going to be.
The benefits of having a teen driver.
Don't talk about that. Oh, so you have two? James, you never drive it.
I'm gonna go in the middle because that's the safest place if a car crash happens.
Thankfully, they all made it home okay, but it was just the fact that There were intoxicated adults in a car with a kid who didn't even have a full license, not to mention all of those other kids whose lives were honestly put in danger. And let's talk about some alcohol stuff, shall we? Because Alicia regularly talks about her kids' trauma, like I said. She has at least one adopted kid with fetal alcohol syndrome. And she's talked before about how these kids are going to have to be very careful in the future about addictive substances. So it makes me wonder then why she is so comfortable keeping alcohol just in the house where any of the kids could find it. Like, I'm pretty sure she started keeping her beloved White Claws in her bedroom closet because they used to keep them in the garage, and she just ever so flippantly mentioned, oh yeah, some of the White Claws have just kind of gone missing.
In case you're wondering why I have White Claw in my bedroom, I can't keep it in the garage anymore. It was just like disappearing. I don't know. Suspicious activity. So now it has to get locked in my room.
And I'm like, ma'am, this is a serious problem. You have kids in your house who have, potential addiction issues, and you're just being so relaxed about the fact that some of your alcohol has gone missing. There has also just been speculation from time to time that Alicia's been drunk or had something else in her big old coffee cup that she drinks every morning. Not me though, I'm a teetotaler. And look, I'm certainly not the judge of whether someone is intoxicated or not. I don't find myself surrounded by drunk people very often, so I can't be the judge of that. I do think it's very ironic that whenever Alicia did get a sponsorship from Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they dropped her. Like, people reached out to the organization like, I don't know, are you sure about that? And lo and behold, they issued a statement in which they were like, actually, we need to update our vetting process, and they dropped her. It's like, here's the statement that Mothers Against Drunk Driving posted to their Facebook. We are grateful to members of the MADD community who brought issues related to our partnership with the Dougherty Dozen to our attention. We failed to do our due diligence. In the future, we will work harder to ensure our partners both represent and advocate for MADD in a positive way that brings awareness to the issue of impaired driving and underage drinking prevention. Effective immediately, we have ended our partnership with Dougherty Dozen. We are also re-examining our vetting process regarding social media partnerships. We remain committed to victims, survivors, and families working to keep our roads safe. This has been a learning moment for us, and we acknowledge MADD must and will do better in the future. I mean, even Alicia herself, when talking about fetal alcohol syndrome, was mentioning that some of her kids wouldn't be able to have too much sugar or too many carbs, stuff like that, because those kinds of foods can be very addictive. And yeah, there have been a lot of studies about, the addictiveness of sugar, but then explain to me why Alicia just jam-packs that house with sugar and carbs, etc. All the things that she said these certain children shouldn't have too much of, they're just getting it constantly. I should also mention that people did question Alicia about why she was feeding her kids the things that she said they couldn't have. And she responded, we healed their guts with an elimination diet and added foods back one at a time. And not to put too fine a point on it, but in my opinion, this is nothing. I don't believe that's true. I think it's just an excuse for her to keep doing what she's been doing. As far as her sharing her kids' info, some people will just be like, she's just sharing her life and how she experiences things, and no one should be ashamed of what medications they're taking, etc., etc. And, Amy Robinson has made this point several times very well, that, these kids aren't consenting to their medical information being shared, nor can they consent to it because they're children. It's really not up to Alicia to share, and we don't see her sharing that in-depth information about herself. Beyond all that, beyond all of those many things that you could or could not make defenses around, there are also the little things. Just from my own experience of watching some of her content it is very scripted and fake. Not all of it, but quite a bit of it. Honestly, there was a video I watched recently where she was doing kind of a grocery shop with me kind of vlog, and then it switched to a voiceover, and honestly, it was jarring.
All right, so what did I get online? I got the shirts. I also got what we're wearing for graduation. We're gonna wear maroon. Yeah, I'll show you. I got us maroon shirts to wear to graduation. Yes, we have maroon outfits, but they are all long sleeved and we are in a heat wave, so short sleeves the way to go. I got cute sandals for the girls and these maroon Nike Dunks for the boys. I placed a Wegmans order for the sub platters. Alex loves sub platters, plus cake, cookies, cupcakes, snack salad, and fruit salad. I ordered a dessert platter and balloons from Edibles Arrangement. These are the Ocean City shirts I ordered this year. I also got us USA shirts. I got the war wounds of running errands.
That, friends, is her TikTok voice. That's the kind of upbeat, over-the-top voice that really grabs all the moms on TikTok, I guess. Like I said before, a lot of the Dougherty Dozen content is just that, content. They try to say it's their everyday lives that they're just sharing. Well, Alicia tries to say it's her everyday life that she's just sharing. But then she does ridiculous things. And it's so clear it's just for like shock value or whatever her total is on the bottom of her receipt, which she almost always shows. You can look at her oldest content and compare it to newer content. And I've also watched a few videos by another reactor called Cursed Eye. And she had added up some of Alicia's older receipts in comparison with her newer receipts. And she's spending like double what she used to spend.
For May of 2021, the grand total is $3,672. You heard that right. So yeah, that is a marked difference in her spending compared to January of 2024 by almost half. This is half of what she spent in January 2024.
So you honestly cannot make the argument that they need to be spending all of this money because they have so many kids, because they haven't always had this kind of money and they haven't always spent it this way. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the whole septic tank kerfuffle. As outrageous as Alicia's spending is, tell me why they have lived in this house for years at this point with a broken septic tank. They have to take these kids to the Y to shower. They go through so many disposable plates and silverware because they can't do dishes. I should clarify, they do have water at their house, but I'm under the impression they kind of have to conserve it. Like, if everyone showers, they can't also do laundry or dishes. But the family also has a pool. I'm not sure how all that works. All I know is they've been talking about getting this septic system fixed for a very long time, and they still have yet to do so.
But what if we buy a big plastic tote and we put it down there and we drain the wash water? You could do laundry. You drain the wash water in. You put we use a sump pump and a hose and put the hose over into the neighbor's yard, and you could pump the water out all the way over to there.
Tell me why Alicia can just waltz into the Apple store and say, "Hello, I need 12 new iPhones, please."
Yeah, we need 12 iPhone 14s.
Which fully gave me heart palpitations, by the way. But yet, they can't get the septic tank fixed? How much sense does that make? Where are the priorities? I've kind of hinted at it here and there, but the Dougherty Dozen are not nearly as popular as they used to be. And I think a lot of that is because of things like all of that junk food that she feeds the kids, all of that oversharing. At times, she's made content that's just been frankly rude to her kids. And I think things like that kind of open people's eyes to what she's really like. But one thing I think caused a lot of people to like turn their backs on Alicia is that she lies. Possibly the most famous example and well-documented example is Clockgate. Y'all, why do we have to have a gate for everything? There was a clock that Alicia had in the background in her kitchen whenever she was doing her like morning routines. And she would always be like, "Yep, I get up at 5 a.m. to prep my kids' lunches and breakfast before they get up." And that was kind of a big deal because you had moms in the comments being like, wow, I can't believe you get up at 5 a.m. every single day. No wonder she drinks all that coffee. And not only is she getting up at 5 a.m., but she is like, she's got makeup on and her hair curled and dressed and she looks nice and she's all peppy. Come on, who is doing that? But like I said, you know, it's content, so it kind of makes sense. But now here's where the clock comes in. There is a sneaky little kitchen window. And people were starting to notice, they live in New York. The sun didn't come up at that time of year until like 7. And yet you could see very clearly light streaming in through the window. She had to have just turned the clock back and pretended it was 5 a.m. when it was so clearly not. I think for a while there, rather than just admit that she wasn't getting up at 5 a.m., she actually did start getting up at 5 a.m. and you could tell because it was dark and she seemed a lot more tired and haggard.
The thing is that she won't address things. She passively aggressively addresses these things, and it's so funny. Okay, so what she did, she went online at 5 a.m. and it is dark. Pitch black dark. It is so dark outside, and I'm just like, and she looks tired. Like, I think she's beautiful. I do, I swear to God, I think she's a really, really, really pretty woman, but she looks tired. I look tired because I've just spent a weekend in Vegas, but she looked real ultra tired. It was 5 a.m. in the morning. I was just like, I couldn't do that. I don't know. I've always said this. I don't know how she does it. Why is it so dark outside now, but it was so bright at the same time last week? Yup, I said the same thing a couple weeks ago, and her stans defended her, but it really makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all.
I think for a period there, she claimed the clock broke, and so they just didn't have one.
What on earth is going on in the House of Content?
And then not too long after that, they replaced it. I don't know, the lighting thing has kind of been a recurring thing, a recurring issue. I'm not sure where Clockgate stands in 2024. And honestly, as convinced as I was about the whole, you know, well, the sun doesn't rise in New York until X and such time, there was even more evidence that came out at one point, because there was a time where her husband came in while she was filming and he made some comment about, well, it's 6:30 whatever in the morning. And she, I mean, it's palpable. She was freaking out because she turned around and looked at her clock and was like, it's 5:25. And what does he say? Not, you know, like a normal response, like, oh, I guess my phone is wrong. Or, is your clock wrong? No, what does he say?
Oh, it's 6:30.
Assess the situation. It's 5:25.
He says, oh, sorry. Like, it doesn't get any clearer than that. And like, this is not the only thing Alicia has lied about. There's been plenty of others. What Amy calls kerfuffles. There's the sandwich kerfuffle. There's the chicken kerfuffle. There's been a lot, okay? There's a lot of things that people have started to notice were just a little fishy about the whole situation. She gives off the impression of being just this very sweet mom who really wants to help, and she specifically wants to take in the kids who have nowhere else to go, the older kids, the ones who have more special needs. She knows everything about her kids. She lays out all the sandwich bread, and she knows exactly what each kid wants for lunch every single day, and she keeps it all straight in her head, and like, that does come across as very caring and attentive. It's complicated, isn't it? Because it's like, well, is it better for those kids to still be in their old situations? Or is it better for them to be with the Doughertys, where they have no privacy, camera shoved in their face 24/7? As for me personally, I think I would rather the kids be with someone like Alicia than the alternative. That's clearly not been the opinion of all reaction channels, and we'll get there. But in spite of that, you know, that persona she kind of gives off of being very sweet, I think Alicia's got kind of a mean streak. And a lot of that is reflected in a child that no longer lives with the Doughertys. The Dougherty dozen at one point was a family of 14. And actually, the brother of the child who's no longer there still lives there, and I'm pretty sure they do have full legal guardianship over him now. And I'm not gonna get, you know, too much into it. I don't want to draw any more attention to these kids' personal issues than they already have out there, but there was just a lot of drama around this child in particular. I think a lot of the audience could tell she wasn't necessarily happy living with the Doughertys. And, you know, not even necessarily just because it was them, but because of constant filming, the lack of privacy, etc., etc. There was a lot of drama with these two children's biological mother trying to get them back. And some reaction channels got involved in all of that, which I don't even know how you could even justify in your brain that that would be a good idea. As much as people dislike Alicia and maybe think that she's not parenting responsibly, the answer to that is not to just be like, I think I'm going to get involved. Me, an internet rando who doesn't know the half of the entire real situation. So that happened. But after that child decided to leave, there was a lot of bitterness that Alicia kind of gave off. If you scroll back through Dougherty Dozen content from before this child moved out, you'll see titles like Family of 14, Mom of 12 Kids. And then suddenly it changes to Family of 13, Mom of 11 Kids. And there was no formal announcement or explanation or anything. The most I've seen was a pinned comment that says, child's name recently moved out. We are now a family of 13 with 11 kids. Heart emoji. And I don't think they owe their audience an explanation of this. Honestly, for the sake of this child's privacy, I'm kind of glad they didn't do a formal announcement. But to me, I don't get the impression that they're not saying anything because they respect this child's privacy. To me, lately, it seems like Alicia is trying to, I don't know, erase this child's existence from their channel. It's all very bizarre, to say the least. And you can make the argument that this is all subjective. There's really no way for me to know for sure what Alicia's intentions are. But she was talking a lot of trash about the child who left in kind of subtle ways. I saw one comment asking where the child went, and Alicia responded, she chose to move out and go back into the system. Capital T, capital S, the system. You could argue I'm reading into it, but that seems like a really passive-aggressive way to say it. The Doughertys have this, like, personalized, like, heart-shaped plaque with all the family's names on it, and she just kind of marked that child's name out, and it's, like, very obvious that it was marked out. And I just have to wonder how that child's sibling who still lives there feels about that kind of thing. Or the fact that, you know, Alicia is getting on her vlogs, sharing information about the sibling that left that really does not need to be shared with the internet. Especially since she no longer lives with them. All I can say is I hope that child is happy and safe wherever she is now. I'm not looking into it. It's none of my business. But stuff like that, stuff like the Doughertys purposefully pumping their dirty pool water into their neighbor's yard.
Well, I mean, we put the pool water over there. The neighbors would just have to not find out.
It just gives off the impression that they're not as nice people as they would have you believe. There's probably a lot more that I missed. That's might be the tip of the iceberg, but I think that's plenty of reason for people to go, don't like her, and agree. Don't really like her. Don't think she's a great person. Why is there a whole reaction community about this, you know, unpleasant mommy vlogger? Why is there a whole reaction community around people like Amberlynn Reed, Foodie Beauty, a growing reaction community around glitter and lasers? Because largely speaking, for all of these people, most of their content is kind of boring. Most of Alicia's content is just grocery hauls and, you know, morning routines. I've watched a lot of them myself. I put them on 1.25 speed, but I've watched a lot of them myself. There was once a video where she was like folding laundry for 4 hours straight. She just uploaded that. It's not like she's out here just spewing hatred and bigotry 24/7. Why all the reactors? Well, it's because in all of that boring content, if you pay close enough attention, you will hear her putting her kids' private information on blast. You will notice things like Clockgate. I get a lot of people in my comments, especially about glitter and lasers, being like, why do you care so much? Just, if you don't like her, just stop watching her. And it's like, well, I don't dislike her. I'm kind of annoyed by her, but mostly I'm intrigued by her. Because when people have this kind of boring, repetitive content, the weird stuff starts to really stick out. And you start noticing little things, and you get to kind of play detective, going back through the catalog and figuring out, wait, they said XYZ this day, but they said ABC this day, and that doesn't match up. That's not right. And I don't know, I think we as people on the internet are just intrigued by these types of people. I'm having a fun time. I mean, Amberlynn Reid is boring most of the time too, but occasionally she just says something ridiculous and we get a kick out of it. I do think there's also something to be said for like human beings' fascination with the bizarre. I myself used to be fascinated by shows like John and Kate Plus 8 or however many kids and counting. But I also think that it's just fascinating and bizarre to come across someone like Alicia Dougherty, who seems like this very sweet and hardworking mom. Oh, well, this person lies and has a mean streak, and she might not be all that she's kind of portrayed herself to be. And I think people, myself included, just eat that stuff up. In spite of all the terrible things she does, there's just part of me that just wants to tune in, wants to see what she's got going on. I'll sit through an hour of sandwich making on the off chance that she says something ridiculous. I don't know. You'll have to tell me what you think. If you watch her, or you watch Amberlynn, or you watch Glitter and Lasers, or just reaction channels about all these people, why? Why do you do that? I don't know. Those are just kind of a couple of theories of mine. I personally have had the most fun doing kind of little detective type work for my Glitter and Lasers videos. But I do also think there's something to be said for kind of raising awareness about like, hey, here are some things that you should avoid if you're a mommy vlogger. Here's what you don't do. Here's alternative ways for you to do this better. But Alicia does not care for it, as evidenced by the fact that she has gone out of her way to copyright strike even small, relatively insignificant to her channels. I'm probably going to include some clips in this video, but probably not that many, because although I don't think she has a leg to stand on when it comes to these copyright strikes, I just don't want to deal with all of that. I mean, at this point, it's a risk at all to talk about Alicia Dougherty, the Dougherty dozen family of products, if you will. Ooh, family of products, ugh. That maybe hits a little closer to home than I was intending. I'm not sure I would ever actually like do a reaction to her, but I am fascinated by her, and as always, I will keep up with her via Amy Robinson most of the time. You should also really check out Amy. She's very funny and very intelligent in the way that she talks about Alicia. Thank you yet again for joining me. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I'll see you next time.
I don't know if you heard the cashier, but she said, are they all yours? And I said, yes. And that's what I always say, because I feel like it's not right to say, oh no, these ones are biological, these ones are adopted, these ones are foster. No, you're staying in my house, you're technically under my care, and I'm gonna just say you're mine instead of exposing any story to random strangers at the checkout.